Ghana has recently stepped into the spotlight after agreeing to accept deportees from the United States under a bilateral arrangement. President John Mahama confirmed that Ghana had been approached by the U.S. government to take in people being deported, many of whom are not even Ghanaian nationals, but citizens of neighboring West African countries. Before we dive deeper into today's update, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support is key to helping us grow and reach more viewers like you. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss out on exciting updates. This development ties directly into the larger global debate over migration, deportations, and the responsibilities of host countries, and it raises serious questions about diplomacy, regional integration, and the rights of individuals caught in the middle of international power struggles. For Ghana, the agreement underscores both the country's obligations under regional treaties and the complexities of balancing foreign policy priorities with domestic considerations. President Mahama explained that Ghana's decision was influenced by the Economic Community of West African States, known widely as Ecowas, which allows citizens of member states to move freely within the region. Under this protocol, nationals from countries across West Africa are entitled to enter and reside in Ghana without visas for up to 90 days. Against this backdrop, Ghana agreed to accept deportees from the United States who were nationals of ECOWAS member states, while emphasizing that they would not be permanently resettled in Ghana, but rather assisted to return to their home countries. In fact, the president revealed that of the 14 people who had already arrived under this agreement, several were Nigerians and one was a Gambian. Ghana had facilitated the return of the Nigerians to their homeland by bus, and the Gambian was still being assisted in the process of repatriation. This arrangement shows Ghana playing the role of a transit country rather than a final destination, while simultaneously highlighting its willingness to cooperate with U.S. authorities in managing a controversial global issue. The broader context of these deportations lies in former U.S. President Donald Trump's hardline stance on immigration, which shaped much of American foreign policy during his administration. Trump pursued an aggressive deportation strategy aimed not just at removing individuals from the U.S., but also at persuading or pressuring other countries to accept deportees, even when those countries were not the deportees' homelands. In Africa, this strategy has led to deportations to countries like Rwanda, Eswatini, and South Sudan. Just in the past few months, 7 migrants were deported to Rwanda, 5 were sent to Eswatini, and 8 were removed to South Sudan. In Ghana's case, the acceptance of deportees sparked immediate debates about legality, sovereignty, and fairness. Is it right for the U.S. to deport people to third countries that are not their homelands, especially when such moves risk violating international human rights norms? For critics, this practice resembles outsourcing migration control, shifting responsibilities onto countries that may not be adequately resourced to handle them. The Trump administration defended its policy by claiming it was part of efforts to deter illegal immigration and tighten U.S. borders. But human rights groups around the world argued that deporting people to third-party countries not only stripped them of their rights, but also endangered their safety, particularly when they had no familial or social ties in those countries. Some nations pushed back firmly against U.S. attempts to offload deportees onto them. Nigeria, for instance, has been one of the most vocal opponents, repeatedly insisting that it would not bow to pressure to accept third country nationals. Nigerian authorities stress that the country already faces immense economic and social challenges and cannot shoulder the additional responsibility of accommodating migrants who are not their citizens. Other nations, such as Jamaica, Vietnam, and Laos, have also expressed opposition, citing sovereignty and fairness as reasons for rejecting such agreements. Ghana's decision, therefore, places it in a unique position within the West African region, both as a cooperative partner of the United States and as a nation navigating the delicate realities of regional obligations. For President Mahama, the issue reflects the dual challenge of maintaining positive diplomatic ties with the United States while also managing the concerns of his own citizens. He acknowledged that relations between Ghana and the U.S. were in a tightening situation, citing not only the deportations but also recent tensions involving hiked U.S. tariffs on Ghanaian exports and visa restrictions imposed on Ghanaian nationals. These measures by Washington have put strain on the bilateral relationship, yet Mahama was quick to emphasize that the overall ties between the two nations remain positive. This careful balancing act is emblematic of the challenges faced by smaller nations in their dealings with global superpowers. On the one hand, Ghana needs to preserve a strong partnership with the United States, which remains a critical source of aid, trade, and investment. On the other hand, it cannot ignore the ethical and practical dilemmas raised by deportation agreements, especially when they involve nationals of other African countries. The decision to accept deportees also brings into focus Ghana's commitment to regional solidarity through Ecowas. As a member of this bloc, Ghana has long promoted the principle of free movement, which is seen as a cornerstone of West African integration. Allowing deportees from the U.S. who are West African nationals to enter Ghana temporarily can be seen as a logical extension of this principle. It reflects the reality that West African nations often share intertwined destinies, with their citizens moving across borders for work, family, or safety. However, while ECOWAS provides the framework for such mobility, it does not necessarily answer the difficult questions raised by the U.S. deportation policy. For example, what happens when deportees have no means to return to their home countries quickly? What responsibilities fall on Ghana while they remain temporarily within its borders? And how does this affect public opinion at home, especially in a climate where resources are stretched and unemployment remains high? The international legal dimensions of this issue are also complex. Under international law, deporting individuals to countries that are not their homelands raises concerns about non-refoulement, a principle that prohibits sending people to places where they may face harm or where their rights are not guaranteed. Although Ghana has indicated that deportees will be facilitated to return to their home countries, critics argue that the process of deporting them to a third country in the first place is itself problematic. It creates layers of displacement, forcing individuals to pass through multiple stages of removal without the guarantee of stability at any point. This raises questions about whether such practices are genuinely lawful or whether they constitute an abuse of power by states with greater resources and diplomatic leverage. For ordinary Ghanaians, the announcement has stirred mixed reactions. Some see it as an act of solidarity with fellow West Africans, consistent with Ghana's historical role as a leader in regional integration and Pan-Africanism. Others view it with suspicion, concerned that Ghana may be taking on unnecessary burdens to satisfy the demands of a foreign power. There is also anxiety about the precedent it sets. If Ghana accepts deportees today, will it be expected to continue doing so in the future? And will this open the door for deportees from other regions to be funneled into West Africa under similar agreements? These are pressing concerns in a world where migration pressures are intensifying due to conflict, climate change, and economic inequality. The Ghana-US deportation agreement must also be seen within the broader narrative of shifting global migration policies. Wealthier nations are increasingly externalizing their border controls, seeking to keep unwanted migrants away by striking deals with other states. This has been seen in Europe's agreements with countries like Libya and Turkey, and now it is being reflected in America's approach to Africa and beyond. The moral hazard in these arrangements is that they often place vulnerable individuals in precarious situations, while the political costs are borne by governments like Ghana's, which must explain these decisions to their people. For Ghana, the challenge will be to ensure that its cooperation does not undermine its sovereignty, its values, or its long-standing reputation as a nation that upholds human dignity. President Mahama's remarks reflected both pragmatism and diplomacy. He noted that all West African nationals enjoy visa-free access to Ghana for up to 90 days, making their temporary stay legally permissible under ECOWAS rules. By framing the deportees' arrival in this way, he emphasized that Ghana was not accepting them permanently, but rather fulfilling its regional commitments. He also underscored that Ghana had already taken proactive steps to ensure the deportees could return to their actual home countries, thereby minimizing the strain on Ghana itself. His approach sought to reassure both the Ghanaian public and international observers that Ghana's role was transitional rather than permanent, while still demonstrating goodwill and cooperation toward the United States. Yet, the decision also signals the difficult choices that smaller nations must often make in the arena of global politics. Accepting deportees may not be popular domestically, but it may serve larger strategic interests, such as maintaining access to U.S. markets, preserving aid flows, or avoiding harsher visa restrictions. It also demonstrates Ghana's willingness to act responsibly within its region, even when the underlying policies of external powers are controversial. Ultimately, whether this agreement will prove beneficial or burdensome remains to be seen. Much will depend on the scale of deportations that follow and how effectively Ghana can manage the logistics of temporary hosting and repatriation. What is clear, however, is that this episode has thrust Ghana into the center of a much larger global debate about migration, sovereignty, and international cooperation. As nations grapple with the pressures of migration in an era of rising nationalism and border controls, agreements like the one between Ghana and the United States will continue to attract scrutiny. They force us to ask fundamental questions. Who bears responsibility for migrants when powerful nations decide to deport them? How should regional blocs like Ecowas respond to such challenges? And what does this mean for the future of international solidarity? In Ghana's case, the answers are still unfolding, but the country's decision reflects both its strategic calculations and its enduring commitment to regional unity. Whether welcomed or criticized, it is a moment that highlights the complexities of global diplomacy in our time, where the fate of individuals often hangs on the delicate balance between international agreements, domestic politics, and the pursuit of national interests.
If today is your first time watching this channel or you are returning to this channel for the exciting content, please subscribe to the channel for more educative and developmental projects across Ghana and Africa as a whole. Do you want to know about the state of a project in Africa? Then make sure to like and comment the name of the project you would like us to talk about and its current state.